A few weeks back, my friend Jennifer asked me if I could help her out with a dance piece she was doing. Jennifer's an old friend and a longtime part of New York's dance scene. Now, listen, if you're not into performance art, you might be thinking, oh, a New York City dancer. Is she on Broadway? Or is she with Alvin Ailey? Is she part of ABT? Maybe even the Rockettes? Nope, nope, and nope, and nope. Jennifer and her friend Edie did a 60-minute dance piece in an apartment in Ridgewood, Queens for 7 people a night. It was intimate. It involved glass platform heels and Polaroid photos. It involved lying on the audience and throwing coins. It was anti-narrative, ephemeral, impossible to describe, and really brilliant. Like, for my part, Jennifer thought having craft cocktails for guests would be a perfect match for the energy and themes of the show, so I created a short menu and attended each performance and made cocktails for the guests. Just so you know, the menu was a cold brew martini, a classic tequila, sherry, and pear cocktail called La Perla, and a whiskey sour made with maple syrup and thyme-infused lemon juice. These are the shows I want to see. They're not even shows, really. They're, like, to use a 70-year-old phrase, happenings. Not interactive enough to be salons, not formal enough to be shows, and not aspirational enough and not aspirational enough to be works in progress. Happenings. What I love is that happenings are experimental and communal. They rarely make us think, wow, you should develop this and try to get it into festivals or onto some theater company seasons. No, they're about now, about this moment, about us live in a room together and experiencing something nearly indescribable. And even Broadway, with its $200 ticket prices and huge names, cannot ever recreate that. And Hollywood, with its slick production and cold static releases, can't either. But then I watched the films we randomly selected from our Patreon for this special Friday the 13th episode of Horror Shorts, and I think that the 1983 experimental horror musical, possibly in Michigan, most closely approximates the feeling I get when I watch these off the beaten path, off Broadway performance art happenings. Possibly in Michigan is weird. Maybe it feels half baked or like a thumbnail sketch of some bigger idea, it's a perfect 11 it's a perfect 11 minutes and 45 seconds of pastiche thoughts, feminist themes, creepy images, and hilarious prose. Also, the songs fucking slap, even if I'm not sure that they're songs at all. Hi, Cecil.
Hi, Jeffrey.
What's the weirdest live show you've ever seen?
Oh dear. The weirdest live show I've ever seen.
Like one that would be
Uh,
impossible to like convince people to go to other than it's
oh
weird.
no. Oh no. I don't know. I guess because like my barometer for weird has been like tempered so much over the years,
Hmm.
and then at a certain point I just stopped going to weird things.
Yeah.
And then there's also the like weird where they're trying to be weird, but it's actually kind of not weird. But oh no, wait, no. I guess there's a drag performance artist called
Hmm.
Christine Machine,
Mm.
that works out of Austin, Texas, and she's pretty fucking weird.
Okay.
I think the first time I saw Christine, I was like, this is amazing, and this is not for all markets.
Was she like grotesque or
Grotesque, um kind of like looks like she's been run through the gutter, like streaky makeup, and she talks like this. She has this kind of like creepy voice. But she made her entrance. She has kind of like two go-go boy dancers carried her in through the audience, and she had a butt plug in her butt, and there was a balloon tied to the end of the butt plug. So you couldn't quite see her, but you could see the balloon making its way through the audience, and they carried her up onto the stage. And she sang all of her original songs, like she didn't lip sync anything. And it was sweaty and sexy and gross and amazing.
I love that.
But it's like, this is the kind of drag that will never, ever, ever, ever get onto RuPaul's Drag Race kind of
Yeah.
drag.
It's funny that like when you mention that your barometer for weird and sometimes when you see weird things, it does feel like somebody's just trying to be weird.
Yes.
And that's where it feels disingenuous to me. Like that's the kind of weird I don't like because at that point it feels sort of normal. Because I think we all want to be weird because weird is a stand-in for the word unique or special.
Sure.
You're not normal. But I think there is something to something that uh is weird because it's trying to tell a story, not trying to be weird, but it's trying to tell a story in a unique way. And yeah, it's a fine line. I don't really know where you draw the line between I'm just trying to be weird and I just
Yeah.
happen to be weird. But when Joseph and I first started writing Night Vale and putting those out, I don't know if you got this too, but as the writers of it, we sort of took this to heart more, but people would be like, "Oh my God, your show is so weird." And I remember thinking, it's not weird. Like it's just normal story. Like it's
Yeah.
funny and,
Yeah.
quirky. And now I sort of embrace that it's strange and weird, but I never thought we were making something weird. I just thought we were playing with tropes.
I think oftentimes people conflate weird with abstract,
Yeah.
which I think deals a lot with possibly in Michigan, kind of where we're at in sort of postmodern art.
Uh-huh.
So things that are abstract, when you're used to kind of linear storytelling, here we're going to Hollywood is going to take you by your hand and we're going to Steven Spielberg you through this experience to make sure everybody understands exactly what's going on. And to see a film or a theater piece that's not Wicked, that's not Indiana Jones, that's
Uh-huh.
very abstract, our brain translate that as weird when it's in fact just nonlinear or it's abstract. It's not about something, which is why I think David Lynch gets put into the weird category because it is weird, but
Hmm.
it is much more abstract than bizarre, crazy, weird.
Yeah.
You watch Eraserhead and you're like, that's weird as shit. But really, I think you're actually saying it's abstract as shit.
Yeah. Yeah. That's totally true. Well, let's talk about these five short horrors that we
Ooh, what a
watched.
what a lovely curation we have this Friday the 13th. I feel like we went around the world.
We really did. Like you guys sent us some really wild stuff and these were really fun. Got some international
I love it.
flair. We got some animated flair.
Oh,
Animated. I said that
yes.
weird. And
Animated.
animated. Yeah, it's really cool. I like this a lot. And we're gonna start with Sushi No
Oh my goodness.
by writer director Jaden Rathsam Hua. All right, we've got little Ellie
Little
dancing and
Ellie,
bopping.
she's bopping around. It's like the 1980s we see on the calendar.
Hmm.
She's got like looks like little like kind of funyuns or something sitting on her fingers. She's having a great time. And her uncle is sweaty and gross and does not like her having fun.
No. He is busy cutting sushi because he has a date tonight. He's like, turn that music off, which is very like it's very like pop girl music, very
Yes,
Taylor
yes,
Swift haters gonna hate is the vibe I got
yes,
from it.
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. And she's like, okay,
And
fine. Then instead, I'm going to play with my affirmation Captain America doll.
Captain Accomplishment is the name of
Captain
this action
Accomplishment.
figure.
I love this sort of like motif that runs throughout this short film
Hmm.
is like actualization of like if you think something hard enough, if you dream something hard enough, only you can accomplish it.
Yeah,
And listen, she kind of does.
she kind of does. And yeah, there's a and in a couple of ways in which things manifest, right? Because the Captain Accomplishment doll is like, as you said, it's like an affirmation doll. It's you
Yeah.
can do it. You if you just believe in yourself, you can do this thing. And later we're going to see Caroline, who is
Yeah.
basically evangelizing a version of The Secret, if you remember that book from
Yes.
20 years
Yeah.
ago. And then we have Donnie, who is buying products on television in the Sushi No, the automated machine that makes the machine that pukes up sushi rolls
Oh my
for you.
God, that swallows fish and pukes out logs of sushi.
So these are all the different ways in which you can manifest something, right? So it's
Yeah.
within yourself, or it's from the energy of the universe, or you just buy it. You just
Yeah.
it's sold to you. But mom and dad are off at their stupid conference, and he's stuck. Uncle Donnie is stuck with Ellie. He gets so mad because she's playing with this doll, and he's so wound tight trying to make sushi for his what he thinks is a date that he runs over and he tears the arms off of Captain
Yeah.
Accomplishment.
And he's like, I have a very special guest tonight. You just sit there and be quiet.
So then, as he's making all this sushi, he sees a TV ad for Sushi No, which
I
is
know.
it's like a no theater mask.
Yes. Well, it's a cartoon. It's a cartoon advertisement, which
Uh-huh.
oh my God, I love the retroness of it because we even get an advertisement or some sort of TV program for the weird culty
Mm-hmm.
symbol because there's like that weird symbol and then like sort of women doing rainbow psychedelic hands, and then he changes the channel, and then we get the Sushi No commercial, which is very like I hate making sushi. Making sushi is hard. Sushi No. And it's this no mask that is just unhinged. And it doesn't really explain how it does it,
No.
but Uncle is obsessed.
Yeah. He buys this thing, brings it home, and that thing like talks to you, and it's like, you are a true sushi master. Yummy, yummy, sushi time. It's like,
Cook the rice, make it nice.
find the meat. I like find the meat is a great
Ugh.
phrase.
And
Oh, yeah.
it looks so bonkers because it's like its eyes go different ways. It's like truly unhinged puppet, you know, and
Uh-huh.
it's wild looking.
Slice and dice and cut the rice. I will cut the meat for you.
Yeah.
So good. Also, when Donnie gets his home, he puts the fish in. Ellie's like, I don't like it. And it
Yeah.
pukes out what just looks like a turd from its mouth. And then
Well,
it
it's
says,
like the uncut sushi roll.
yeah, but it's so disgusting looking the
It's
way
pretty
it's
gross.
coming out.
Yeah.
And then,
And
dude,
the soy
add
sauce
the soy
dispenser.
sauce.
Oh my God. It just sprays out of its nose.
Yeah, it like sneezes soy sauce onto the roll.
Absolutely not. I love this. This is like so like we haven't even gotten to like the horror part of this short
Uh-uh.
yet, but like this really dives into like the grossness of eating, which I
Yeah.
think is like a really niche area of horror movies. And actually we kind of saw this and you see this every once in a while of like how disgusting humans are.
Yeah.
Like when you really it's a part of body horror
Mhm.
that I think is a very valid corner of the horror genre of like the consumption of food, the preparation and consumption of food, and like in what we go through to make our bodies exist is so gross when you sit down and think about it.
When you I remember when we covered the movie Dumplings for this show,
I was gonna say dumplings is like front and center in my mind.
because not only what's in the dumplings, but also just the sounds and the
Yeah,
closeness of
the
the eat.
slurping and the like, ugh.
Because and they don't really make the food look. Oftentimes the food looks really good.
It looks gorgeous. It's like glows in that movie.
Yeah, but it's like taking in every sound and every close up
Yeah.
of it and seeing the unctuousness of a dumpling is
Oh,
oh
yeah. But in this, it's the opposite. It's like these sushi rolls look like leeches.
yeah. I really like the title of Sushi No, as you know, this is an English language movie or short film. But like Sushi No is so good. I mean, like one, you just have the English sound of the word no, meaning
Yeah.
no.
Like
But
no sushi.
yeah, like
Like
no.
not. Like
Absolutely Sushi Nope is kind of the
yeah,
vibe.
sushi nope. Yeah.
And but also because of the tradition of no theater in Japan. And we have mask work in this movie.
Yes, we do.
We have maybe the most secure attachment of a mask I've ever seen.
Oh my God. Yes, we do.
But also the everything about this piece, like the acting in it, especially from Donnie and later Caroline, and even the TV actors, is very it's theatrical. It's
Yeah.
very They're playing to the top balcony.
Stylized.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Ellie is like playing a girl, so there's kind of a high energiness to her, but she feels like the most natural thing in this film. Well, okay, so Donnie's greasing his hair back and in the
Oh my
mirror
God.
practicing, Caroline, you look beautiful just like a flower.
You are so beautiful. You are just like a flower. You are just like a flower. And we know that honestly, this is not whatever's about ready to go down, it's not going to go well.
No. Okay, I laughed so hard at the scene when we see Caroline because we set up the awkward thing. He's like, "Would you like to sit here on the couch next to him?" And
She's
she's
like,
like, "No, I'm good
no,
here."
I'm good.
But he has this plate of the driest looking sushi,
Oh yeah.
and she picks one up very tentatively and eats it. And just watching this woman's face, like, mm,
Oh. Goes right for the water to wash it
chugs
down.
it. Is this a family recipe?
I love that.
And then we realize she's like, okay, well, before we do anything else, what I came here for is this, and she passes out flyers to him and to Ellie,
You can read this at your nearest convenience.
and then
Yeah,
she
she pulls
has
out like a
screen.
yeah, screen. I was like, oh, what is this? Okay, what's going on?
I thought she was about to preach some Christian thing,
Oh
and in
no.
some essence, it feels a little bit like that, but this is more like MLM vibes to me. But
Wait, what is MLM?
oh, multi-level marketing, like pyramid
Oh,
scheme
yes.
type of
Yes,
thing.
yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes,
like
yes, yes,
a
yes.
Tupperware or whatever.
Yeah.
But she's here to do a presentation on the House of Emanation.
Yes.
I love how awkward she is, that she has no stage presence
No.
with them
She's
at
a low
all.
level
Hmm.
that like she's gone to a couple of these presentations. She's done the routine, and now this is like the first time that she's gone out and she's trying to recruit people. So
Yeah,
she's not very good at it.
no. But she's trying to say like, okay, you know what? Oh, let's visualization exercise. First, like, let's shake it all out. Shake it all out. Raise your arms up and follow me. And then we
Imagine what you love.
Mhm.
What do you love most in the world? And you can see Donnie, Uncle, he's like, you. Like,
Yeah,
I love you.
yeah. He says love is his
Yeah,
answer to what you love most. And
I
she's
love
like,
love.
Okay, great.
He asked the girl, and she goes, she's like, that doesn't matter.
Hmm.
Doesn't even matter what you love. Doesn't matter. But just visualize that.
She says, allow your dreams to manifest around you. Breathe, focus, emanate. Breathe, focus, emanate. Breathe, focus, emanate. Breathe, focus. And then we get like this camera flashing back and forth between Ellie's face, Donnie's face, Caroline's face, all sorts of different things. We see the broken off armed captain accomplishment. We see all kinds of dreams, visualizations. And Ellie is really into this.
She
Donnie's
goes
just
into
going
like,
through the motions of like,
yeah.
he's trying really hard.
Well, Ellie's not just into it. She goes into like kind of a like trance or like an almost like an epileptic fit.
Yeah.
So something is like, I was like, ooh, are we getting some like ESP kind of telekinetic powers being unlocked here?
Uh-huh.
Maybe.
And Captain Accomplishment, the armless Captain Accomplishment says, only you can make your dreams come true. And Donnie starts lurching and coughing and spitting. And before we know it, a whole ass sushi roll is coming out of his mouth.
Yikes.
And he spits this. They really do make this look like a turd up on
Yeah.
the table.
It's like I thought it looks like a leech. Like it looks like a
Yeah.
fat, like a sea slug or like an eel. Because it's like everything about Johnny is like greasy.
Uh-huh.
His hair, his face, sweaty, greasy, like ugh,
Blah.
like covered in gel.
Yeah. And upon seeing this, Caroline's like, well, gotta go. Bye.
Yeah, I'm getting the fuck out of here.
So that night, Ellie is asleep in bed, but like not really asleep. It feels like her dreams are still manifesting things, which is to go back to the mantra: breathe, focus, emanate, and allow your dreams to manifest around you.
Uh-oh.
And Donnie is hunched over a bathtub, puking up whole fish.
Well, that's not good.
And we see an overhead shot of the bathtub, and there are several fish in that
That's
bathtub.
like a dozen or
Uh-huh.
so. And then he kind of collapses into the bathtub. And I was like, oh, she killed him
Mm-hmm.
with her psychic powers.
Same.
But no, he's not dead yet.
No, the sushi no lights up in the kitchen. Yummy, yummy sushi time.
This is the other thing is like as this short film goes, the sort of robot, the Mr. Roboto voice of the sushi no gets more and more distorted and
Uh-huh.
deeper and like less and more like degraded. And it gets so scary.
Mm-hmm.
That sort of like degraded robot voice. It's horrifying.
Yeah. And Donnie pops up, and now he is in like zombie mode. Like he
Yeah.
is being controlled by something beyond him. And
I
he's
love this. I love the shot
yeah.
of like him, like we just see his feet kind of
Mhm.
like zombie lurching forward, and then a fish falls, and then he'll go, "Ugh, ugh," and then he'll like, and then a fish falls. Like this is like making the most out of a low budget horror short and
Uh-huh.
getting the most bang for your buck. Like we just have to see it once and then we understand what the fuck is happening. You don't have to show it every time.
Yeah.
And then our imagination fills in all the gaps.
Uh-huh.
It's almost better that way.
She hears him like grunting in the hallway, going, "Find the meat." And she's like, "I'm gonna call my parents."
Yeah.
She remembers the number of where they're staying and is trying to call that number, but the like lamp on her desk keeps flickering out. And so now here we have the filmmaker being like, "Let me show you a classic horror trick."
I know. Yeah, exactly.
It
Like,
is a little bit like your dad when you're like 7 years old playing the I got your nose game.
yes,
You're
it
like,
is
I,
very
I
much.
know it's coming, but I'm delighted that you're doing it. Thank you.
Yes.
And
Yeah,
so
because
it's
it,
the above the desk. She goes below the desk and the camera follows to like shake the cord of the lamp to get the to make it stop flickering, and then above the desk, and he is like closer each time behind
yeah.
her, and the last time he's gone completely.
Uh-oh.
But when she calls, she ends up with a busy signal. Like she
Yeah.
cannot get a hold of him, get a hold of her parents. And then she walks into the kitchen, and there he is kneeling before that machine like it's a shrine. He opens up the machine and takes the face off of it. So it's a mask. It's a theatrical mask.
Yeah. And you see the kind of the robotics underneath it.
And on the back of the mask is just nails, like spikes sticking
Yeah.
out. And he just takes that and just shoop right onto his face.
And then slams his face into the ground
Mm-hmm.
over and over and over very rapidly.
Very
Just
hard.
to just to really just to hammer that mask on in there.
So so visceral. I was just I was wincing during this whole thing. Yeah, and then like more also I love the because like all great mask work, the angle of the mask is so important. Any uh, any condiments on the mask are
Oh
really
yeah.
important. So all the blood that appears on this mask, it looks it goes from like clown crazy to crazy clown really
Yeah.
quickly. Uh and then she is like she's hiding. She's like got her back turned around the corner. She keeps hearing it and then it stops and she looks back and he's not there.
He's just gone
Mhm.
again.
She's trying to creep out of this place and then calls her back in with his like sad Donnie voice, like, "Ellie, did I tell you I'm sorry? Help me." Mm-mm. That's some Wendigo bullshit.
Yeah, I know, right? And then the hallway turns very red
Uh-huh.
And there's kind of like floating curtains in the hallway.
Yeah.
Like we've gone full theater, full theatrical here.
Yeah. Yeah. And that we hear the door slam, and it's just kind of like a long, yeah, curtained red hallway. And we hear the wicked laughter of whatever this Donnie Sushi no beast is now. Make Sushi find the meat. And he has knives. Hack,
He's
hack,
doing he's doing
hack.
he's doing his little knife dance.
Yep. And yeah, I was surprised by the end of this the end of this little short film because he gets right up on her and the last thing that happens is just a whap, like right at
Yeah.
her
Just like
and
a
black.
downward slice at the camera
Uh-huh.
and then blackout, and
Black.
that's it.
Oh, Ellie.
Oh, sometimes what you manifest
Uh-huh.
may not be what you really, really want.
It's very true. It's very, very true. So the lesson is don't manifest.
Don't
Everyone stop
manifest anything.
manifesting.
Stop manifesting. And if it involves putting an entire ungutted, unscaled fish into a machine, do not eat that sushi.
No. Stop having dreams, y'all.
Stop dreaming.
This is the that's the end of Sushi No. Let's get to film 2 of 5 here. This one was so interesting. I initially was
Yeah,
like, are people fucking with me here with this movie? But
a little
I
bit.
really liked it. I it's horror, no, not in the traditional sense, but also like this is Hedgehog in the Fog, a 1975 Russian animated short film. And it is it's like children horror. It's
Yeah,
spooky.
it's very spooky. It's much more haunting.
Hmm.
I really like this because the color palette really reminded me a lot of the like sort of the art books that my parents had in the like from the 70s of this sort of very muted colors. Like we're talking grays, whites, browns. And it's about a happy little hedgehog who has a jar of raspberry jam. And every night, he goes to visit his friend Little Bear.
Hmm.
And the two of them sit out on Little Bear's front porch and they count the stars. And they kind of have the same conversation over and over again, but it's part of their charm. Little Bear's a little forgetful, and he's like, "Oh, they kind of do the little same dance back and forth." And the hedgehog counts the stars to the right of the chimney, and Bear counts the stars to the left of the chimney. But on this trip, the hedgehog kind of walks into a bank of fog
Hmm.
and sees a white horse standing silently in a bank of fog and gets very confused
Hmm.
and like, oh, and this is not, and then on his way there, we also meet the owl who kind of does a like almost like a sneak up behind you kind of thing, even though
Yeah.
the owl is huge. It's almost like a little clown routine where like the owl is right behind him, the hedgehog. And every time, and the hedgehog is just oblivious. Hedgehog's just doing his little thing, like finds a hole into like a deep hole and goes, hello, 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 listens to the echo. And then the owl does it, but the owl's kind of unhinged,
Yeah.
goes, hoo-hoo, and makes an unhinged owl face. But the hedgehog sort of loses the owl, walks into this fog, and everything gets really mysterious really quick.
I I also wanted to clock like right before he goes into the fog, he Hedgehog is like he's repeating the same things that they do every single night together.
Yeah,
So, we have a narrator telling us what Hedgehog is going to go hang out with Bear tonight and do these things. But when Hedgehog says it, he's like, well, what'll happen tonight? Well, I will tell Bear that I brought the raspberry jam. And he will say, it's a little cold in here. Should we put the twigs on the fire? What kind of twigs are they again? And I will say they're juniper twigs. And he says, oh, yes, because it gives off a nice smell. And like, and you can kind of hear it for rote. Like, that's
yeah,
just how we
yeah,
fucking do things.
yeah. Like we've been doing this every night
Hmm.
since ever since we've been around.
So in the fog, everything's scary. Like the first thing that
Yeah.
happens is like a leaf falls
I know. He's terrified of this leaf.
And then he realizes it's just a leaf. But then under the leaf, whoa, is a snail. Oh, it's
But
just a
it's just a
snail.
snail. The snail
Yeah.
just kind of walks away. But then there's a bat. That
There's a
bat is
bat.
creepy.
That bat is creepy. And also I mean, both, there's also like the shape of an elephant in the fog
I
too. I'm
know.
like, oh, you're in the mist, son. That's what's happening here.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that the elephant is creepy just because we never really see it all the way. The
Yeah.
horse is creepy because it just has a disaffected look. Like
It's
it's
what's so beautiful.
uh
And it's also very different animated style. Like Hedgehog and Owl and are very kind of like prickly versus the horse is really ethereal and ghostly. Like
yeah.
we're talking like Galadriel. This is the Galadriel of horses. You know, it's completely silent. The horse never speaks. And it's all and it looks sad. It has a like, yeah. And Hedgehog even says, like, I wonder, like, kind of was like, oh, I wonder if the horse is okay. Like, is the horse going to be okay in the fog?
Yeah. Yeah. If I
If
think
it
it was
lays
some
down, if it lays down, will it drown in the
yes,
fog?
that's it. Yeah. He can hear Bear shouting, Hedgehog, you know. He, Bear is just worried and impatient.
Yeah,
We'll get to Bear in a second, but there's a moment where he sees like a shadowy something in the fog, and the hedgehog picks up a stick and like, pokes it. And as he gets close, he realizes it's just a tree. Like everything that is a horror is just a normal thing, but the
yeah,
fog makes us so scared because it
yeah,
limits what we can see. Um, this is Bear's tree, right? Like this is the tree that he goes down to visit Bear and Bear's den or whatever.
he's
But
probably
when he,
walked past it a million times,
yep,
but it has suddenly become mysterious and scary
uh,
because of this fog.
but then he realizes, oh shit, while I was fucking around in the fog, I left my pot of jam. Shit.
This is really interesting. Like the animation takes a turn, and it's everything has been kind of relatively playful, I would say.
Uh-huh.
Maybe the bat's a little bit manic.
Hmm.
The bat's a little scary. But at this point, it like I think the animator really captured that frenzy of like forgetful, like when you've forgotten something and something very important and you know you're screwed. Like whatever it is about the animation, and it kind of like you see Hedgehog like darting around the tree trying to find something, trying to find the raspberry jam. I don't know. The animation like perfectly captures that moment of panic.
Yeah. This reminded me a lot of when I was a kid, like the first book I fell in love with as a kid, uh, like not parents reading me a book, but me reading
Mhm.
on my own was Alice's Adventures in Wonderland through the Looking
Same.
Glass.
Actually, same. Yeah.
And there's a bit of that which you just have like a kind of like a timid solo creature lost in the world
Yeah.
and trying to make sense of everything. But I think that kind of is a lot of what horror is to a child, but it's not horror yet, right? Because we're not talking
Right.
about like Sushi No, where a child
Yeah.
is
We're not.
witnessing
Yeah. Yeah.
violence.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
We're talking about like the type of like thrilling terror of like autonomy, of growing
Yeah.
up, of like the world is a big and scary place and you're having to navigate it. And
Yeah.
it doesn't make sense. Adults don't make sense. The world makes no sense. It's all on you to put it together. So when the fog shows up, you're gonna have to find your own way. And that's really scary to like an 8-year-old reading Alice
Of
in
course.
Wonderland. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like having to walk to school for the first time by yourself.
Hmm.
And what I think what makes this short so into a horror short is presenting something that is we do the same thing. We have the same experience every single day that is nice and comforting, and then something changes, and all of a sudden our normal, comfy, cozy life is sort of thrown into disarray
Yeah.
and mystery. And that's where the horror comes from.
And it's funny because all of that is so key to childhood growth and development.
Yeah.
I remember when I started fifth grade, and in fifth grade at my elementary school, you had one less recess session in the day. And after day one of school, I was crying to my
Yeah,
mom. I was so sad. And like, but that's what happens with growing up.
that's
But this
it.
shit never goes away. Like as you
No.
get older, things happen and they can never be the same again, you know? And
People like, especially in like child development, like people need routine.
uh-huh.
Like kids hang on routine to get through these kind of tumultuous early years. And then I think we hang on to that as we get older.
Hmm.
And then if something not malevolent, but just impenetrable like fog happens that throws off your routine, like having one less recess. Why? Just because that's the way it is now.
Yeah.
It throws your brain into a panic.
Yeah. Well, he's looking for his jam. I really one of the really neat kind of fantastical elements here is he lights his candle and walks out into the fog and is looking for the jam. And then suddenly the light of his candle splits into fireflies and drift away, and he's
Yeah.
left in darkness. There's owls and bats and elephants and snails, and he's so scared and he trips and falls over. And then what we see is a close up of like a wolf-like mouth, a canine mouth panting above him. And then when the camera shows the full shot, it is just the fluffiest fucking
It is the cutest spaniel
yes.
ever. Like King Charles Spaniel or something.
Yeah, some Cocker Spaniel, yeah, Cavalier King Charles, just this goofiest sweet dog. And the dog runs off and then runs back and he has the pot of jam in his mouth and hands
And
it to
just kind of and
Hedgehog.
like nudges it into the hedgehog's hands
Yeah.
and then yawns and then runs away.
Yep. Hedgehog falls into the river and ends up drifting along the current, just floating on his back and thinking, I surely I will drown. I can feel the wetness all the way into my skin now. Surely I will drown in this river. He's looking up at the stars though,
Yeah.
not with Bear, but on his own. There's a moment, I think like the spookiest moment of this whole thing, just visually, is suddenly the horse head
I
just
know. The horse just kind of like floats by.
like its head pokes down and stares
Oh yeah.
right down the barrel of the camera, essentially. And then comes a voice. Who are you and why are you here?
This to me is the scariest part.
Yes.
Because if the horse is that all white kind of mystery,
Yeah.
kind of it feels very like afterlife.
It does. The horse is scary because it's not friendly looking. It's beautiful. It's
It's
not
it's
mean or
no, it's
scary. It's
it's
just
ethereal.
expressionless. Yeah.
Yeah. But what is beneath the water is unseen. You catch a glimpse of it, and it looks like you just see the barest outline of a large, large fish.
Yeah.
But they never actually say what it is. It just says a creature from below.
Uh-huh. And the hedgehog tells the voice, like, I'm the hedgehog. I'm lost. I fell in a river. I'm trying to see my friend Bear and says, I'll give you a ride. And is it what's the old fable? The is it Scorpion and the Frog? Is it the
Yeah,
yeah? And so that evoked that to me, where you're like you're
right.
scared of what do you want from me in exchange?
Yeah.
Are you trying to fuck me
It's like,
here?
is this fish going to eat this hedgehog?
Yeah, it's a
Because
little
it's
bit like
certainly large enough. It's certainly large enough to.
yeah, and to bring it back to Alice in Wonderland, like the walrus and the carpenter, right? Like just
Sure.
leading on the fucking oysters to
Yeah.
their deaths. And he bring the creature brings Hedgehog to the shore, and Hedgehog says, "Thank you." He says, "Don't mention it."
It kind of swims away.
Then he gets to Bear. Oh, Hedgehog, you do need to diversify your friend base.
Oh, come on. Bear is
Listen,
great.
Bear's sweet. Bear
Bear
is
is he's just
lovely.
he was worried. He's a worrier.
He's
Little
a
bear
warrior.
is.
Yeah. I was like, Bear, you need to chill out because you have not been through the weird thing tonight.
I know.
Um, But yeah, Bear was just worried. I was shouting your name, and then this, and then this, and then we get through the. Did you bring the raspberry jam like you always do? Yes. It's a little cold in here. Shall I put the twigs on the fire? What are those twigs called again? Juniper.
Juniper bear. Yeah.
Oh, because yeah, that's right, because it makes it smell so nice. But Hedgehog is wondering about the horse.
Can't get that horse out of his head.
No. How is she doing in the fog? The end.
That's it. This is like, it's so interesting. This is like some real kind of Jungian, like
Yeah.
deep imagery shit.
Yeah.
Like some human developmental shit. And I think when it started, I was like, oh, okay, a fable. Okay, this might, let's see where this goes. But I think it's, like I said, I think it's the color palette. It's the murkiness of the fog. And then like you start thinking about this sort of like archetypes of what happens to this cute little furry animal that is very like trying to just get through to this nice, safe, warm, and cozy friend.
Uh-huh.
It starts to get kind of spooky.
It does get really spooky. It does get really spooky. And it's also like it's so beautiful and sad at the end, which is to use Jungian, but I was just thinking like when you spend time like working on yourself, when you really like
Yeah.
think, when you really introspect and think about your place in the world, but how you can also just control what you can control in your life. And there are many things you cannot. And so all you can do is manage the things you can control. And that's what Hedgehog is processing here.
Yeah.
And there are things you don't understand, like the horse in the fog.
Yeah.
And
And
Hed
there's things underneath the surface that are
Mhm.
shadowy things that you can't control, but might help you if
Yeah,
you talk to them.
yeah. Terrific. Great times. Really, really fun. Love that we got to watch that movie. Let's talk about our third short film. This is Storytime.
Oh, this was a delight.
Oh, how fun was this? And I am trying now, I'm trying to look this up. Oh, okay. Last year when we did these horror shorts, do you remember the horror short Portrait of God?
Yes.
Same director.
Okay. I was like, please don't ever make me watch that horror short again because seriously, to this day, I think that is the scariest short
Yes.
film I've ever watched.
Portrait of
Like,
God is incredible. If you go to Dylan Clark's YouTube channel, you can find it.
like when people are like, "Oh, what's a good horror short?" I'm like, this is next level, Portrait of God.
Yeah.
Storytime is scary as fuck,
Yeah.
simple, and I love, again, talking about color story, kind of the opposite of Hedgehog in the Fog. If Hedgehog in the Fog is like sepia toned, this is like well, the character's lead name is Poppy,
Uh-huh.
and the red could not be more red in this movie.
Yeah, everything is mostly cool neutral tones
Yeah.
and like cool modern, right? Like a
Yes.
apartment fluorescent cool.
Yeah.
And then
It's very Instagram filter.
yes, and the red is very red. This one's so hard to write down. This was also Dylan Clark did not write this. It was written by Tom Lawson and Brett Morrow, and this is a very writerly script, as it is looping back in on itself in tremendous ways. So we open with a woman getting out of bed under her red sheet, a red blanket, and she is listening to the Short Frights podcast. She's got her AirPods in, and this episode is called Poppy's Story, and she's just getting up to go about her day, make make her lunch for work that day, and the narrator of this podcast is narrating the podcast, but also we get the idea pretty quickly. It's narrating her life and what she's
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah, because okay, so in the podcast, it's like Poppy seems to work in some sort of hospital,
She's a
and
hospice worker, is
she's
what
a
they say.
hospice worker.
Hmm.
And the actions that Poppy in the podcast is doing start to collide with what the main character, or what we're witnessing the main character's doing.
Hmm.
So the main character gets up, she takes the reddest red bell pepper,
Oh, I love this. Washes it in the sink.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
starts to chop it up, cuts her finger, two of the reddest red drops of
Hmm.
blood fall into a napkin. Meanwhile, Poppy has been sewing up Mr. Cobblepot. What's his
Mr.
name?
Cresswell. Yeah, in
Mr.
the podcast,
Crestwell.
Poppy in the podcast is sewing something for Mr. Cresswell.
And she pricks her finger, and two red drops of blood.
Fall on
And
his
this is
gown.
the first time the narrator or the main character is kind of like synecdoche. Is that the word?
Synecdoche
Simulacrum? Synecdoche,
simulacrum. Yeah, it's
in which
yeah, it's
two things happen simultaneously that are unrelated but seem related.
mhm.
Is that the right definition of that?
So yeah, sort of. Yeah, there's a doppelganger effect. Yeah, like almost
Yes.
a crazy mirror world. In the narration of the podcast, they say, Poppy was this hospice worker but she cared for all of her patients, but one in particular, she could not wait for Mr. Cresswell to die. His horrid, it's like terrible coughs, his sickening coughs
Oh yeah.
made her feel really, she did not like them. Like it gave the vibe that his coughing reminded her too much of mortality, and she didn't like that.
Hmm.
And it's this moment when she cuts herself, and then in the narration, the blood from you know, the main woman, the real Poppy, cuts herself with the knife. Podcast Poppy cuts herself with the needle while darning his sock or whatever. And seeing the blood, she like pauses because it's simultaneously happening.
Yeah.
And in the podcast, it says she wondered, why did Mr. Cresswell insist on leaving the windows open? And she looks over in real life and the windows are open.
And
And
it starts off as like, oh, that's weird.
it's
But then it
funny.
takes a bit of a turn with the next one.
Then she thought she heard something, one of Mr. Cresswell's sickening coughs, and she kind of lowers the volume on her
Like
iPhone.
takes out like one of the earbuds and kind of
Uh-huh.
listens. And I love this. This is like where sound design in film is like maybe one of the most underlooked things, and especially in horror, is probably one of your best friends because the sound quality changes. Like the room tone changes because now we can hear a different kind of room tone as she's listening in her apartment.
Uh-huh.
And it's that kind of like white, almost like white noise room tone, as opposed to the like muffled sort of podcast room tone that you're listening to right now.
Uh-huh. And it's a long delay and she looks relieved for a second because she doesn't
Yeah, she's like, oh, she doesn't hear
I
a cough.
didn't
She's
think I
fine.
hear anything, and then
Yeah, of
suddenly
course. That's silly.
you're like, oh no.
Oh, fuck. Well, she grabs a knife.
Uh-huh. And the podcast is fully just describing how
Yeah.
she is moving through the
The
space.
floorboards creak beneath her feet, and it's, yeah, same.
And
She
there
goes into her bedroom,
and there lay Mr. Cresswell under his covers. It
and there is
sometimes
a,
looked as if he was dead already, but he was still very much alive. And there is a figure under her bed sheets.
yeah, yeah, you in danger. Danger.
This
And
is
she,
so scary. So
this is like,
scary.
it's so tense because it's the figure. I don't think the figure does move like very rapidly, and real life Poppy gets the fuck out of there. So smart, good
Uh-huh.
girl. And she goes right to the door. And Mr. Cresswell in the thing is like, no, don't leave me alone. There's someone waiting outside. And
And
she looks and she can see like feet, like on the shadow of feet underneath the door. And she kind of like thinks twice.
yeah.
And I'm like, honestly, the thing under the bed or the thing under the sheet in your bed, the thing on the other side of the door. Really?
Yeah.
Uh, Neither option seemed great.
You know what? Those windows in the kitchen were open. That's where
Yeah.
you can go.
You could
I,
also like, I don't know, take your iPod, chuck it into the fucking garbage disposal. That would
yeah.
work too.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. He says, don't open the door. Something outside wants to hurt us. Don't leave me. Don't let it in. And that figure when she looks back in the bedroom, she gets away from the door. She doesn't open the
Yeah.
door, front door. She gets back to the bed, and that figure on the bed is sitting straight up, still covered in
Ugh.
the red sheet.
Hate that. That's a pretty solid horror trope of like
Yeah.
thing under blanket sitting immobile.
Yeah. And she
She's
does
like
like the most middle of the road choice, which is just to run and hide in the bathroom and lock the
bathroom,
door.
lock the bathroom door. She try and there's like a red shower curtain that I'm like, oh Jesus Christ, Poppy, you gotta decorate your home a little less scary. Like there's a window in the bathroom, but she can't quite get it open.
And the footsteps outside continue. Oh, I know what it is. She takes her, yeah, when she takes her AirPods out, she's like, maybe if I don't listen to it,
Yes.
it's not happening. But those footsteps continue. And so she has to like put them back in to find out what's happening. And Mr. Cresswell was just outside the door. It opens, and then you just see that red shroud. He did this, Dylan Clark, the director, did this with Portrait of God, of just things barely visible in the
Yeah.
darkness.
Yeah.
But he comes closer and closer, and then that red shroud is right up on her, and it says, the podcast narration says he stood there unmoving. And just having a thing that you can't read
Right?
its face, you don't know what it's doing. Mm-mm.
Yeah.
And it lurches at her. And we hear the podcast narrator say, now our story is coming to a close and dear Poppy is out of time. She just puts her thumb on the scroll bar of the podcast and rewinds right back to the beginning.
Fuck yeah.
She's safe. The end.
The end.
Nope.
No. And she wakes up in bed and she is kind of thrown out of bed and her iPod is sitting on the bed and she is clearly like, you know,
And that podcast starts over with the same narration
uh-huh.
of like, I forget, it says something like, it's not until you see yourself in the story that you see that it's real.
I
But
could
then
tell
it's
you how it ends, but unless we go through the entire story, it really won't make a difference. It doesn't get the same effect.
no. And then it says, then it just jumps the script and says, don't you want to know how it ends, Poppy? I'll show you. And this shot is so good. Like, right? It's from her viewpoint on the floor, looking over the top of the bed with the red sheet. And there's a long pause, and then that red sheet just lurches right at the camera.
Yeah.
And then a quick clip of her head getting smashed and blood
Like
splattering on
into
the
the
wall.
floor. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like Mr. Cresswell like smashed her head over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And it's like we see a shot of like real life Poppy, like a nice family picture being knocked off the mantle
mhm.
or knocked off her dresser drawer, you know, a splatter of blood across the iPod. Again, with the like what happens off screen, the violence that happens off screen that is insinuated is your best friend
Yeah.
in Scary Town.
Well, and just like in doing, I think that why horror works so well, horror and comedy works so well in podcasting because it's the unseen thing. It's
Yeah.
just your mind creates the ludicrousness, the extremeness of what's really happening. I Yeah, it just describes like he slammed her delicate face into the ground until the floorboard splintered. She's mangled and bent until unrecognizable. This is all being said, and all the visuals that you described are happening where we don't see it direct on. There's one moment in the picture frame where you can just see
Yes.
her in the reflection.
Yeah.
Something is dragging her across the floor. It's very
Yeah.
small and it's just barely reflected. So good. And this is the end of Poppy's story.
That's it.
I would like to listen to this podcast. It sounds horrifying. So good. And I think also there's so much in like visual media where, especially like, what was the, uh, God, that terrible TV show about, with, what's his name? Zach from, Scrubs.
Oh,
What's
yeah.
his name? Fuck. Who's Zach from Scrub? What's the guy's name? He
Yeah.
directed Jersey
Garden State.
Boys, Garden
Garden
State.
State.
God, my
Jersey Boys.
brain. Oh, I love being old. Um,
Zach Braff.
Zach Braff. He had that one where he was playing a podcaster, and it was just so ludicrous. Like
I never
depictions
watched
of
it.
podcasting and other
Yeah.
media are usually silly, because they've got to shorthand it to do a thing.
Right.
I think they capture the screenwriters and the director really capture what a normal podcast sound like a good solid
Yes. Yeah.
narrative podcast sounds like. I thought it was great.
Well, and it also taps into like a very old storytelling device, which is the wraparound story.
Yeah.
The like you are a, the never ending story of you're there's a character that is reading a book or listening to a podcast
Hmm.
that realizes they're a part of a story that's in a story that you, the reader, are reading about a character that's in a book that's in a story that you're, that like that's a tale as old as time. And
Yeah.
like what a great way to incorporate new media into that.
Well, speaking of like a structure as old as time, a tale as old as time, let's go to our fourth, No Through Road,
Oh,
which
classic
is
found footage.
on December 15th, 2008. Four 17-year-old boys from Hertfordshire were reported missing by their families. On December 17th, their bodies were found at Broomhall Farm, 10 miles outside Stevenage, where they were from, in the car they had been driving. This is unedited footage of the car, from the car. And it's yeah, and it's sort of the donut of this, the opening and closing title cards are about like the family has approved this. If you have any
Yes.
information, please go to findthetruekillers.co.uk/reports or whatever. Well, we've got four perfectly 17-year-old boys.
Yeah. Lads.
Lads, the most lads.
Lads being lads, drinking their Stellas, driving around the middle of the night, coming home from a bar or something.
Yeah, I mean, they make a reference that it's like that it's almost 4 a.m. and they're trying to
Yeah.
get back home because they've got school at 8 or
Yeah.
whatever. Like it opens with the first moment we see them, like they're making a joke about Steve Irwin's death.
Oh shit. I missed that. A
Because
lot of
they're
talking over top of each other in
yes.
this. I mean, I like how they leaned into the messiness of found footage,
Hmm.
which I think is part of the found footage genre of like this is where like it's rough, it's cinema realite,
Uh,
which is hard to parse out, but I think is that like thing where you're like watching it, you're trying to like pull the threads of the story out.
yeah. And this is pretty standard stuff. Like the story is pretty simple. They end up. Oh, one thing I will say visually throughout this, every so often, this unedited footage of a bear, this unedited footage is interspersed with shots of each of these boys from
Yeah.
previous times. Like, one of them's just like in his room playing a guitar. One of
Happy
them is like
memories.
happy
Yeah.
memories, but they're real twisted and distorted. The
Oh
sound and
yeah.
visual of those are real
Very
twisted.
digital distortion.
Yeah.
But it's only
But
until the creepy shit starts happening
yes.
that we get those.
Well, they end up in front of, they're driving down the road, but they end up in front of like an archway, like a long tunnel. And
It
it's a
says no
sign that
through
says
road.
no through road. This is Broomhall Farm, private property, no trespassing.
What great name, by the way. Broomhall Farm.
Hmm.
Perfectly evotes sort of witchery, witchcraftery.
Yep. And
And they're
the
like, fuck it, let's go through. I mean, we're already here.
yeah, and they start into the tunnel and they're like, "No, I don't think we should be here." Somebody else, somebody in the car is like, "It's a private road, like just back out. This is
Yeah.
not gonna lead us home. It's just some person's farm. We're gonna be
Yeah.
stuck in there." And they back out, driveway. They don't go through all the way through the tunnel, but they are already marked, Cecil.
Yeah. I'd like to point out that they also love playing this game,
Hmm.
kind of early, even before they get marked, of the like turn the lights out, turn the headlights off on the dark highway,
Hmm.
and then turn them back on. And that is going to come and bite them in the ass later. So they're driving, they're like, okay, we've been driving down this road. Look, we had to stop and pee. We've been going for, I don't know, it seems like 2 hours. We haven't seen a single car. They found a dead rabbit
Yep.
that seems, freshly killed.
Yeah.
One of the boys is kind of kicking it with his toe. And then one of the guys like, I'm going to go out just a little bit ahead of the car and like look around, maybe see if I see any street lights or anything like that. And pretty quickly he goes, everyone back in the car, drive, 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 which is not something you want to hear at 4 o'clock in
No.
the morning on
Yeah,
a
he was
country
like,
road.
there was someone out there and they were wearing some kind of fucking crazy mask. But they start driving and driving. Their phone and their GPS are not working. They're driving and driving, and they get to this fork. They've already seen this fork earlier,
Yeah.
and it is you can either go straight, you can turn left, or you can turn right. And the left sign says Bennington, the right side says Wotton. And
And they're like,
it's
Bennington, they're like, we're nowhere near either of these places. So,
no.
but
So
they're like,
they
let's go to Bennington. Like, fuck
Yeah, the
it.
first time
Let's,
they just went straight. Like we're not going to either of those places. They
yeah.
went straight, and that's how they end up back at the sign. So this time they say left. Let's just go toward Bennington.
Yeah. And they keep
And
driving.
one of the boys he's like, just don't take us to that Wicker Man town. They're like, stop
I know.
talking about the Wicker
I know.
Man
I
right
love
now.
it. Love it. This is not the time to be talking about Wicker Man.
They turn on the radio.
This is bonkers.
This fucking song is,
How to describe it? It's like demented ice cream truck. If you
yeah.
gave Rob Zombie an ice cream truck, this is what it would sound like.
A-
It has kind of a rusty squeeze box, like folksy, like folk music kind of sound to it, but also kind of digitalized.
uh-huh.
And it plays for like 3 seconds. They're like, what the fuck station was that on? Turn that shit off.
That's my new grassroots movement is somebody give Rob Zombie an ice cream truck.
Absolutely.
I want this. But yeah, that's exactly what this sounds like. It's loud, it's
Yeah.
rusty sounding,
Yeah.
it's synthy, but not in a fun 80s way, not
Yeah.
in a possibly in Michigan way.
No, 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 no.
It's
It's much,
dark,
it's like,
it's
yeah, it's like
calliope.
yeah, calliope folk music that's been like digitalized
Yeah.
and harsh.
And they're like, what the fuck radio station are you on?
Is this BBC Two, BBC Three?
And they
But they keep on driving.
they keep on driving. They get back to that same fucking place. They're like, we've been like driving for
We've
like
been
three
going.
hours, and they're like, it's the fucking England winter, so like the sun's not even gonna be up till like 9.
Yeah.
Uh,
But they're like, you know what? We've been going in a circle. The road goes in a circle. That seems logical, right? Well, let's try it. Well, we went that way. We went that way. Let's go to
Watton,
Watton, I suppose.
yeah. Now they're driving toward Watton, and then I see lights up ahead. There's a roundabout.
Yep. There's
Oh my
a
God,
car passes
another
them,
car. Look, a sign towards Stevenage.
and it looks like a highway sign. The comfort of when you're driving through the country and you're like, oh, thank God, a fucking Shell station.
Yeah,
Like an interstate.
yeah,
We've made it out of the woods.
yeah. But then they do that fucking trick again with the lights off. But was it? Did the lights, their headlights turn off on them, or did they?
It's
Because there's
hard
a
to tell. I think the first time they're doing it, it's like before they're ever marked. They're kind of doing it just to like 17-year-old, like, woo, scare ourselves.
uh
I think this time it just happens to them. I don't think
okay,
they intentionally did it
yeah, because their
because
lights go
they're yeah,
out.
they're getting ready to like merge onto a highway
Yeah, like get the fucking lights back on, and then that fucking archway is in front of them again
like instantly.
instantly,
That's
and they're like,
so disorienting.
Broom Hill Farm, no trespassing, private road.
What the fuck?
And now there's a man standing in
Yeah.
front of that archway, and he is coming at them as the camera is cutting in and out.
Yep.
It's fucking chaos.
Like the car won't start, and then it does start, and then it's just the radio is playing that fucking creepadoo song.
Uh-huh.
People are screaming. There's another person behind them also and it's also those like sort of like loose, like opaque flesh masks
Yeah.
that are like kind of see-through that are like so fucking scary.
Yeah.
Chaos. It's pandemonium. You can't
Chaos.
really see too much of anything. It's just like
You
lots
get
of boys yelling.
Yes, and you get the sense that whatever is coming after these boys has made its way into the car and is
Yeah.
attacking them. And the kid with the camera, I think his name was Steve, I don't remember, but
Dylan.
Dylan, he gets his way out of the
Noel.
car and is running and he keeps like turning back, but he thinks he gets away.
Well, he runs into the
Oh yeah,
tunnel,
that's right. He runs into the
which
tunnel
is
and
like, oh my God. Like,
no.
because there's killers at the car. So he runs into the tunnel. And this is fucking pretty fucking scary because like you can hear him in the tunnel. And that car fucking starts up.
And
And that
drives.
fucking creepy-doo music starts up. And the car engine revs. Vroom, vroom. Even though it's, it's a British car. So like how scary can it be?
Sure,
But
yeah. Oh
he
no, I
take
got run over by an Opal.
yeah,
Oh.
yeah. Like, oh no, a Renault. I could probably like run over the top of it. But it's hard to tell, but like essentially he makes it through the other side of the tunnel and he kind of like hooks a left.
Yeah.
So he like heads into the field on the other side of the tunnel and kind of like ducks down. We see the car and the fucking creepy music sort of drives on. He's like, okay, if I stay really quiet, maybe they won't know and they know exactly where I am.
And he gets this was so much clearer to me than when we watched Hell House LLC for Patreon. I remember we had this like hang up about like, wait, how did she get killed? I didn't understand. And we
Yeah.
realized like, oh, she was beaten to death by the camera.
With the camera.
And then here, they make very clear whoever this killer is has taken this boy's camera and is just pounding his face into the
Yeah.
ground with it.
They do a really amazing job with like, because it goes in stages. And
Hmm.
this is where I think the found footage genre kind of falls short. Like they go for the chaos and the like, you know, craziness of reality, but at the end of the day, we need some storytelling in there. And I think this death really has it. So it's
Yeah.
like we see the head getting close and far away, close and far away, and then you see the like crack on the lens, then you see blood on the lens, then you see blood on the face, and it just keeps going.
Yeah.
All the while interspersed with digitalized footage of happier days of, this kid in science lab
Right.
playing
Oh,
guitar,
yeah.
like just, they're hanging out doing stuff,
Amazing.
but it just keeps going.
Um, and then it just goes to test pattern, and then we get our
That's
final
it.
title sequence thing saying, if you know anything about this, please contact. I do want to say that this show, this horror short was made in 2009 by Stephen Chamberlain, who was one of the boys in this. He was 17 years old when he made it.
Oh
He
my
made this with a group of
God.
his friends. And there's no on the post online in the metadata or like the descriptor of this. There's no credits given, so I had to look this up.
Yeah.
Um, he used this film as part of his as part of a way to get into a film program at a university.
Amazing.
Yeah, so good for these guys. This is
And
like
it has like 3.8 million views on YouTube as well.
this is a really well done found footage
Yeah.
example. Like I think found footage has limitations on what there's no almost no perfect found footage movie in
Yeah.
terms of like holding to realism of how the camera is
Mm-hmm.
used.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and I think he nails it great. He gets the scares really, really well. He finds 17-year-old boy very well. And
Yeah.
so yeah, it's
And like
perfect.
and especially like we don't hate them. Like it's like they're fun. They're like, we see them like eating candy bars and like drinking Stella, but it's not the like they're like, oh, these fuckers.
Yeah.
Like they're not hitting on that at all. So
No.
like by the time shit does kind of fuck up, we don't feel like, oh my God, you totally deserve it.
Yeah,
It's like these are
they're
just
lads.
for kids that they took a wrong turn down the wrong fucking haunted path.
Yeah. Yeah, they're not maybe people I would have hung out with. However, that doesn't, but there's nothing bad
I
about them.
probably would have.
Yeah,
Honestly,
maybe.
I
Yeah,
I probably would
honestly.
have, to be real.
All right. That is the end of our fourth. Let's get to our fifth and final short film for this episode. I mean, I'm not kidding you when I say this, Cecil. This is maybe my favorite thing I've watched for this show in four and a
This
half
is
years.
this blew me away, Jeffrey. This like Okay, so what is possibly in Michigan?
Well, I can tell you it was written and directed by Cecilia Condit, who is still an active filmmaker. And the music and also the performance of Janice is by composer and actor Karen Skladani. This is the most like I remember the Dallas Video Fest when I lived in Dallas. There was a Dallas Video Festival every year, and it was these types of movies, these
Yeah,
types of short films. They were made on camcorders.
yeah.
It's like a very lo-fi quality to everything. It was always very strange, very experimental, and this is experimental as fuck.
This is experimental video footage from 1983.
Yes. Yeah, it's a
Like,
1983 creation.
because that's important to realize. That's
Uh-huh.
important to note because not only just the aesthetic of it, but also like what they're discussing
Mm-hmm.
and kind of what was going on politically in the nation at the time, I think is a really important discussion about what possibly in Michigan is about.
Yeah. Well, it's I mean the simplest read on it is going to be about it's going to be it's just a feminist take. Like it's a it's talking about male violence against women, about women working together. I think you could very, very easily take this to a very gay read of
Oh
these
yeah.
two women. Is an easy next step. Would you have a different like overarching thematic read that I'm not taking
No,
from
I think
this?
no, I think that's
Yeah.
it.
So we're at a classic 80s mall. There
It
is
is
no
the
one in
most.
this mall.
Nope.
And we have kind of our main character in Sharon, and she's meeting her friend. Sharon is the long, straight, dark hair, and
Hmm.
she's meeting her friend Janice, who has got the lighter curly hair.
Hmm. And Sharon and Janice are cut from the same cloth, as the Casio keyboard music tells us.
Yes, we've got a
They're,
narrator telling us these
yeah,
things.
in music, because this is a musical.
Uh-huh.
They're cut from the same cloth. They're beautiful. They love perfume,
Yes.
and they have a tendency to have men fall in love with them and commit violence that, what is it? How is it phrased? That like,
Sharon attracted violent men.
that's it. But made them think that it's like there's a turn
But
of
the,
phrase
but
that is
yeah, but
so
she
perfect.
attracted violent men who were very good at making Sharon feel like the violence was her fault.
That's it. That's it. Exactly.
And her friend, I love this narration because also on the escalator right behind Sharon
This
is
fucking
this
shit.
creepy man in a suit wearing a mask that looks like it's like a distorted maw of a man, like a rubber mask with an open mouth, but it almost looks like a sex doll type of open mouth.
It looks like a sex doll. It also, you know what it reminded me of? You know when you go to the carnival and you have the water gun and it shoots the stream of water into the mouth and
Mm-hmm.
then like the balloon blows up
Yep.
like that.
Yes.
It's very white boy Billy, like, but if there's something about the open mouthness, and he's wearing a
Yeah.
tuxedo, and he's always like 15 feet behind Sharon and Janice.
It's always following right behind.
Fucking creepy. And
They
they never acknowledge he's there. Or at least not for
not
they don't
reg
acknowledge he's
yeah.
there for a while.
The um the narrator says Sharon attracted violent men. Her friend Janice was cut from the same mold. They even liked the same perfume. And Arthur, who was following them, was similarly disposed. The three of them had two things in common: violence and perfume.
And
Just
so
an
like,
impeccable sentence. An
right?
impeccable sentence.
Ugh. There's something about the video, like it's hard to describe this film. Like everyone go watch this film. Um, because what we're describing is what happens. But the tone of the film is determined by what is intercut in between what happens. So you've got this sing-songy kind of Casio musical, but then in between you have video shots of a building being demolished, of a like the leg of a lamb being butchered,
Yeah.
of a woman in grayed out 9 millimeter film running away from a camera, of the
Of
same
Sharon in a
woman
bed of roses.
Sharon in a bed of roses with flowers in her hair, of later on of like an actual decaying corpse.
Uh-huh.
So what again, back to wrap it around to what we were talking at the beginning, like what is weird or creepy and what is abstract sometimes collide.
Hmm.
And this is creepy as fuck. And I think what makes it creepy is some creepy shit, but
Yeah.
also some of the abstract imagery that is like happens underneath the
Yeah.
plot of this video.
Sh- and the prose in this is so good when it lands on a line. It's so poetic and strange and evocative. Like they get into a song where they're these two women are in the
This song,
perfume
this is the
store.
shit. The perfume song is this is the shit, y'all.
This one here smells great, like Mother's sister Kate, who was,
Mother's sister, crazy sister.
but she couldn't have, she wasn't crazy. Well, she did try to put her poodle in the microwave one time. She did. Did she try to eat it? No, she was just trying to dry it off, and the microwave exploded, and they were both found dead. She must have been out of her head.
Okay, those are the lyrics. But this is how it actually sounds. Oh no, this is what it sounds like. You remind me of my mother's crazy sister. The one who put the poodle in the microwave to do this thing, to eat it? Yes, to eat it? No, 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 no. Unbelievable.
Just slow clap. Just
Like, meanwhile, Billy, or is it? I keep calling him Billy. No, what's the name of their stalker?
Arthur is,
Arthur
yeah.
is just again just hanging out back there, and sometimes he participates.
Yeah, when she
Like,
sings the no, 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 no in the background, he's just shaking his hand back and
yeah.
forth with the single finger up.
So there is this sort of like parasocial
Hmm.
aspect. Like
Hmm.
he wants to be part of their life. Like it's creepy.
So there's also so they find their perfect perfume.
Yes.
This is my favorite perfume. We've been looking for it everywhere, and they're saying bye to each other.
Would you go get me a bottle? I'll meet you out front.
There's also, oh, I also want to say they reprise the opening song of "I bite from the hand that feeds me,
Yes.
slap at the face that eats me," and Sharon talks about, how do I meet the strangest men? Remember that time I kissed a guy who ate his women friends.
Yes. Where did we meet? Possibly in Michigan.
Hmm.
Meanwhile, there's interspersed like mannequins of women in kind of 80s dresses, women dancing with men in various different masks,
Like
like
pigs
animal
and
masks.
frogs and
Yeah.
donkeys.
So it has this feeling of women as commodities
Uh-huh.
and men as sort of interchangeable other bachelors,
Yes.
like under the and we're gonna get into Arthur and his fucking neuroses.
Uh-huh.
But they see him on the way out of the mall. They see him and they get very scared. And they're like, let's get the fuck out of this mall. Oh, it's
Yeah.
this dude again. He's horrifying. They go home.
Hmm.
Janice drops Sharon off.
Hmm.
And Arthur's out front. This is the thing that I was like, again, this fucking like, what is it? Arthur has worn so many masks that he's forgotten who he was underneath them.
Yes.
He imagines himself a frog that when he has that true kiss of love, he'll turn into a prince.
Yes. He is credited, the narrator in the movie calls him Arthur right at the beginning. But in the credits, he is credited as Prince Charming.
Yeah.
In the
That's the thing
closing
is like
credits, yeah.
it's our two women are like they have personality. Like there's a they are real people. And even though we see Arthur's face because he takes off his mask to present himself, he rings Sharon's doorbell.
Hmm.
There is this feeling of like the interchangeableness of men.
Yeah. And we sort of realize after Arthur's fate that there are many of these men, like they're everywhere. And it
Yes.
kind of
Yes.
shows that because at the street outside of Sharon's home, he's standing on the sidewalk, but then it cuts to another shot of another angle of the street and he's standing behind a car and then he just kind of like pops in and around the screen
Yeah.
constantly. I do want to highlight, I think one of maybe my favorite line from any movie I've ever seen when the narrator says Arthur longed for that sexual scent that reminded him of home. And just snaps for
Yeah.
that line.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
horrifying. It's so upsetting. It's this is good. It's real good.
It's so good. And what makes it even better is that it's packaged in a fucking Casio keyboard music.
Uh-huh.
So like if you were to stand up in maybe this goes back to what I was saying before of like if you were very serious and you stood up in a coffee shop and you read this script out loud about like, you know, this feminist kind of manifesto, people would be like, "Damn, that's some heavy shit."
Uh-huh.
But if you take a feminist manifesto and you write music to it, then it gets next level.
Yeah.
That is some next level shit.
So there's uh
So,
Janice
okay.
is back at home. Sharon is at home.
Yeah.
Arthur is ringing Sharon's doorbell. She's not answering it, but he picks up a
Well,
brick.
she looks outside, she sees him, and she kind of ducks to the floor. She's kind
Hmm.
of, and she calls Janice. She's like, "It's that guy again."
And Arthur picks up a brick. When he lifts
Mhm.
this brick, it's like a cinder block, piece of a cinder block. When he lifts it up, we see like a decayed corpse face underneath it in the grass.
Yes.
And he chucks it through the window, lands on
This
the
is actually,
bed,
this
and
is
there's
some of my
worms
favorite
everywhere.
like video work in
Uh-huh.
this because it's so we've established this like shot of Sharon, and she's like, her hair's all splayed out on the bed. She has like flowers in her hair. And we've kind of established that throughout once she kind of gets home, kind of her taking a nap. She's like this beautiful kind of, you know, Lady of Shalott kind of
Uh-huh.
image. And then this like actual, like it almost looks like footage of Auschwitz, kind of like actual corpse.
Uh-huh.
And the way they like overlay the two, it's fucking haunting.
Yeah. There's worms fucking everywhere
Yeah.
underneath this brick and it's spreading throughout. But he there's also a moment where so Janice is trying to run to get to her house, and there's just a lot of intercut shots of like Janice, almost like a 80s police procedural
Yes.
opening credits of like she braced the gun kind of almost right at the camera, like you.
And it's a total cap gun. And it
Yeah.
doesn't even try to sound like it's like it goes cap. Like,
Yeah.
like it sounds like a child's gun in the same way that the music sounds like a child. Like it, it had the sing-songiness of it has a sickly innocence to it that makes it
Uh-huh.
so fucking delightful. But Janice is having a hard time get to rescue her friend Sharon because Janice keeps running into these dudes left, right, and center. They're like on every lawn. They're in
Uh-huh.
every driveway. She shoots one that's dressed like a frog. He goes down. There's another one dressed like a pig. There's another one dressed like a, etc.
Well, Arthur makes it into Sharon's place and he grabs her and kisses her and tells her through like just voiceover.
You have
He's
two
like,
choices,
you have two choices. I can eat you now or just dismember you slowly over time.
piece by piece.
Piece by piece, I will cut off your arms and your legs. Why? For love. But love
This
shouldn't
this is my
cost.
favorite line. This is my favorite
Go
line.
ahead. Yes.
Love shouldn't cost an arm and a leg.
So good.
I was like, oh, because it's taking something that is so cliched and like something arm and a leg. Something costs an arm and a leg.
Uh-huh.
Looking, this is what postmodernism is to take something that you see every day, break it down to its most fundamental parts,
Yeah.
look at those parts, and look how those parts can be used in other ways, and then reconfigure into a Frankenstein's monster that has a different connotation, has a different life.
Yeah.
So something costs an arm and a leg. But what if you're talking to a cannibal that wants your actual arm and a leg,
Uh-huh.
added to the fact that it's about love?
Ugh.
Like not money, but love shouldn't cost an arm and a leg.
We see images interspersed of Sharon being attacked in slow motion by him, but also Sharon, a close up and slow mo of her tearing into a cooked steak, like a really gristly
Yeah.
steak. And then Janice finally makes it there, shoots Arthur, and he falls down dead. And these women are like, well, let's do it. And they cut him to pieces, throw him into a pot,
Yep.
stew him up, and then they eat the stew
They feed
naked.
pieces of him to the dog,
They feed some of him to the dog. They they sit at their dining room table eating stew with
smoking
red wine
cigarettes.
and cigarettes, both naked.
So it's really interesting. I did some digging into so it's important to, before we got online, I was like, Jeffrey, the National Endowment for the Arts in the
Uh-huh.
80s was wild because this is the era of Mapplethorpe, of a lot of things, like a lot of artists that were pushing
Yeah.
extreme boundaries
Yeah.
with government funding.
Yeah, because we're building to the what was it Holly Hughes and
Yeah.
who were the four, the
Like Piss
NEA four.
Christ and like a
Yeah.
lot. Yeah.
Serrano and all them.
So this from like this like last minute and a half, 2 minutes was actually featured on the 700 Club
Yes.
as a like lesbians, the destruction of the wholesome family. Look at these two lesbians killing men and eating them,
Uh-huh.
which to me is a perfect encapsulation of what America kind of like the conversation in America in the 80s was like the religious right saying, look at these artists that are completely destroying the fabric of America while cherry picking like one scene of like two women. And like, here's the thing, you don't see what again, what you see is like completely clean bones. Like if you went into like a
A Halloween
skeleton,
store.
like a
How
Halloween
yeah.
store, like the least horrible horror,
Hmm.
like the least realistic. But it's the fact, and like they're naked, but you never see anything
No.
like it's
No,
shoulders
everything's
up.
placed to cover everything just right
Yeah.
and it's safe for
But it's
YouTube and everything.
but it feels very intimate.
Hmm.
Like they're real comfortable with each other, real comfortable with
Hmm.
with their bodies, especially. And they're like making this soup. And then they take the bones, they take out the clean bones, they wrap it up. But like the religious right kind of takes these like little minute things and like, look at these horrible, horrible gays and perverts and deviants,
Uh-huh.
and then completely throws out like the other 9 minutes of the film that talks about like how they got there, of like it's fucking brilliant.
It's so good. Ah, it was good times in the NEA. Loved it. The yeah, they packaged the bone. They put all the bones into a garbage bag and just set
Yep.
it out
Wrap
on
them
the
up in
street
newspaper.
corner.
Like it's so just casual. They
Hmm.
wrap it in newspaper, they put it in a garbage bag, put it on the curb.
I also want to note that while they're having their cigarettes and wine and Arthur stew, there's another man in that same like crazy open mouth mask behind them, and then when they look out at him, he ducks back down.
Yeah.
So it is a thing where like
They
it's an
just
ongoing thing. They did not defeat
yeah.
the enemy.
No.
but they turned it on one of these boys. It's an
Yeah.
ongoing thing. It makes me think of kind of the opening of Delamore, right, with the cemetery man, wherein like you realize, oh, he understands he's in a cemetery full of zombies and he's got
Yeah.
to shoot them every now and then if they come into his space.
Yeah.
That's who these women are.
They know they attract men who love violence.
And the closing credits are just shots of this garbage truck
And
compacting the
it's
garbage.
clearly like a real ass garbage man
Uh-huh.
just
And I
picking up
think
the
this
trash.
was all shot in, I'm guessing this was all
Cleveland.
shot in Cleveland because
It
it's
was
like
like
the
Ohio. I think it
Cleveland,
said like Ohio Endowment for the Arts,
it's,
kind of
yeah, Cleveland Council for the Arts. Thank you for
Cleveland
the
Conference.
support.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I do believe this is a Cleveland based product. Uh, Incredible. Just absolutely incredible. Cecilia Condit, good times. I didn't get the sense that Karen Skladani is still working as an actor or musician, but Cecilia Condit is still out there. This is on her YouTube channel, this particular video of possibly in Michigan. The end.
I'd
Oh,
also like to
please.
point out that a few years back the no 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 no
Uh-huh.
no became a TikTok meme
Oh, I missed
and
this.
tens of thousands of people have recorded themselves with that meme. So if you're on the TikTok, get put yourself into possibly in Michigan.
Ah, it's so good. Well, that is the end of our fifth and final short film of this. It's so hard to rate these as far as approachability. I will say that really like Hedgehog in the Fog and possibly in Michigan, I'd say you should just go. It doesn't matter how approachable horror is for you. Like those are both very approachable short films. And I think they're both really good watches and they're very short. The other three definitely follow a lot more like horror tropes.
Yes.
Story time
S-
is real
Storytime
fucking
and Sushi
scary.
no. Well, actually, like the other three are very like horror.
Horror.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've got like two tens and like three ones, basically.
Yeah, I
Not quite
know.
one, but like not very approachable. So, but yeah, I really strongly encourage you to go watch Possibly in Michigan. I think it's incredible. We have this uh playlist up on our YouTube channel, and it's in the show notes of the last episode. Anything else to add about any of these? We don't have to roll for another movie because this is just we've already got that one set. Anything else to add, Cecil?
What a delightful. I felt like we went around the world.
Thank you,
Like,
Patreon, for these
yeah.
contributions. And also, these were solicited from all of our Patreon followers, so you can be a free member of Patreon, and you do get these solicitations when we have these bonus episodes. And we have discussion threads of every episode that you can participate in without having to donate. But at $5 a month, you could also donate and be part of our live streams. That's pretty fun too. Thank you all for listening. Thank you, Cecil, for talking with me. And if you have thoughts on any of these horror shows, if you have thoughts on any of these horror
Chodes.
shows, let us know on our Patreon at Random Horror 9 or Instagram, where we have these public discussion threads. And watch Dracula from 1931 with us this weekend and come back Tuesday for that episode. Have a restful night with no crazy ants microwaving your poodle or nothing. Boo!
Boo, 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 boo.